We are not withdrawing from Iraq at all yet, as we should. We should withdraw. South Africa, someone had requested I talk about South Africa. It's almost impossible to do so in a savvy way with my level of exhaustion. But I think with South Africa, a lot of people, specifically racists, are focusing on South Africa because they want to say that ending apartheid failed. They want to somehow make the case that, see, South Africa was this rich, successful country under white people. Now it's under black people and it's failing. And that's really fucked up because under white people, it was a rich, successful country for the 15% of South Africans that were white people. Can you find people who anecdotally say, or even really legitimately find black people in South Africa who are willing to say, we were happier under the white folks? Sure, you can. How seriously to take those kinds of comments. There are plenty of people who assume they were better off under dictatorship because their current conditions are unpleasant. So what has happened in South Africa is, grim and disappointing, but not really. I mean, compared to Zimbabwe, which has obviously done dramatically more poorly. Look, if you're going to have a country that is run for centuries by a racial hierarchy, and you remove that racial hierarchy, you're going to get real problems. That does not mean that removing racial hierarchies is something we should regret. I think that, the sort of history of South African presidents is one of sort of grim decay. You had Mandela, of course, and then you had Thabo Mbeki. I'm sure I mispronounced that, or might even have gotten it wrong. I apologize. Who famously was a sort of AIDS truther. I think he backed off of it eventually, but he had all kinds of quite anti-science ideas about what AIDS was or was not and how to fight it. But largely was like, obviously no Mandela, as nobody could be. And then, of course, you had Jacob Zuma, who was in power for about a decade and was just a desperately corrupt nightmare. I can't recall exactly the details of his relations with women, but I seem to remember that a fair amount of it was criminally actionable. Just a really seems like an all-around real piece of shit, Jacob Zuma. And what's interesting, the certainly The Economist, I'm not trustworthy that is, but I think a wide array of outlets portray Cyril Ramaphosa, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, I apologize, as an attempt to sort of retrench and get some basic competence and anti-corruption in power in South Africa. What's really interesting about this unrest that so many racists have so gleefully been celebrating over the past month or so in South Africa is the reason it was sparked is it's sparked by Jacob Zuma, the corrupt former president's supporters, rioting violently because he was put in jail for corruption. That's our dramatically corrupt former president will never go to jail for corruption. South Africa seems to have done it. That's impressive. I don't want to, I don't want to blow smoke up your ass and pretend that the position that South Africa is in right now is somehow miraculous or fantastic. It's not. South Africa was always kind of a two-bit commodity-based place. Yeah. Like there are a lot of more complicated industries and whatnot. And yes, there was, is in the first heart transplant in South Africa or something. But yeah, that's the kind of, nice paradise you can support with 85% as cheap, brutalized labor and 15% privileged class that benefits from all the diamonds and the gold and this, that, and the other thing. South Africa was always going to have difficulty transitioning from a system that wanted to pour its resource wealth into 15% of the country, with literally centuries of that capital being poured into that 15% being educated, and I think they were all angry Protestants, which means they've been literate for 300 years, and if you're going to switch from that to a economy that's meant to serve 100% of people, that was always going to be very difficult. It was papered over, as were many things in the emerging market, in the 2010s by the incredible growth of China. And South Africa is predominantly a resource extractor and seller of commodities, did extraordinarily well, and it really looked for a little while, I guess, when the odds, that was Thabo Mbeki mostly. It looked like, okay, this can really happen. We really can spread the wealth. We really can make it happen, because commodities were going through the roof in such an absurd way because of China's rise. I think one of the really sad wake-ups for the past decade is that, well, without the context of China's 10, 12% growth, and it turns out that India is not growing to that extent, and even had falsified some of the growth figures that indicated it was getting, within that realm. Without that sort of China growth, South Africa is getting to see the real problems of attempting to use the commodities, commodities that used to support paradise for 15% of the country are having difficulty supporting complete economic reconstruction and a middle-class lifestyle for 100% of the country. This is not particularly surprising. Will things get worse in South Africa? It's entirely possible. It's still doing dramatically better than Zimbabwe, isn't it? I still, though, I think there's some disillusions setting in. What Cyril Ramaphosa is on his first, second, or third year at this point in power. Like, he hasn't instantly fixed everything, because he doesn't have power over the amount of resources that China wants to consume. Some of the bloom is off the rose, but my understanding is that he's seen as a more trustworthy set of hands than Jacob Zuma and his clique. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. I do think that we should be a little less judgy of a country dissolving in riots for doing an anti-corruption prosecution of its last sitting president. I think that's actually pretty laudable. Also, I don't know how much sense it makes to single out South Africa in particular when we are seeing literally worldwide protest and dissatisfaction. The past decade of China no longer vacuuming up resources as much as it has led to a lot of economic stagnation. And then this, already in 2019, I was running videos about protest world and how crazy it was. And now you've got COVID that is hitting all of these places that were sort of limping along and leaving people dissatisfied in the 2010s after an amazing 2000s. And the shit's hitting shit is hitting the fan in South Africa, but in a whole crap ton of other places as well. It's not a great story. But I think you should be leery of people who specifically want to pick out the South Africa story and say, oh, look at this, white people run things better. You should be leery of those instincts because they are incorrect and annoying. Anyway, I think I'm totally going to cut that out and make that another clip. I think I've already got a "What was South Africa better under apartheid?" Part 1. I think this will be "Was South Africa better under apartheid?" Part 2. Okay, let's see here. We have so many comments to deal with, and I'm halfway through, and it's been 2 hours. Hey, 5 people are still here. I'll keep going.